Thank you for attending tonight. And again, this is the annual meeting, and this is our time to do a few things. It's our time to report to the community about your community foundation, what we've done, where we've been, where we're going. And along the way, we're going to give out some money tonight, and that's the good things, right? That's the purpose of the foundation, is to improve the quality of life in Centerville and Washington Township. So probably the first thing I should have said is thank you. Thank you for your support. This community has really stepped it up, and we certainly appreciate the support that we're getting. And I want to thank all of the organizations that are here tonight that are going to be accepting grants from the foundation. Thank you for what you guys do in our community, because that's really what it's all about. We can talk about the progress, and I'll throw numbers out. Being a financial person by trade, I like to gravitate toward the numbers. I feel comfortable when I talk about numbers. But really, the reason we're here is for people helping people, moving the needle on philanthropy in our community. So, as we get started, I want to acknowledge a couple people and certainly thank them for coming. We have a couple of elected officials. Sharon Lowry in the back. Dale Berry. And Brooks Compton, who got here late. I told him he was going to have to come up and give the invocation and pledge the flag. We appreciate the efforts and, in all honesty, the work that you guys do as elected officials, because, you know, as we look at keeping the fabric of our society together, certainly the government units providing services, that's the core of it. And we just try to hopefully fill in around the edges and fill in where there are gaps. So thank you. I'd like to acknowledge our board members, because I'll tell you, everything that gets done through the year, we've been a lot of volunteer hours. So I would ask that our board members stand up for acknowledgement. And for the most part, they're a good group of people to work with. I can say that tonight because this is it. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one of the interesting things is we have grown as an organization is the committee structure. Well, one of the committees that we have really constituted and a certain member has found the home there and does such a great job. I'd like to recognize Carol Kennard, who heads up our events committee. And Carol and her committee puts this together, gets the information out, and makes sure that it comes off without a hitch. So Carol, thank you very much. A couple of key points. You know, we talk about reporting back to the community, and we really feel that this year has been a great year. A couple of key points. Last year, 2017 over 2018, our grants went from $14,975 to $20,500. Okay, so that's a 36% increase. Now, I will also tell you that in February's board meeting, we approved to have grants of $30,000 this year. So it's going to go from $20,500 to $30,000. So we keep trying to move that needle up a little more and a little more. Our number of donors this year increased 24%. We have 132 people in the community that support this organization, and we certainly appreciate that. And our goal is to increase that to 1,000. So we got a lot. That's your job next year, Mike. Move it to 1,000. Okay. we got a lot of runway to improve, a lot of room for growth, but again, we like to celebrate some of our successes. Our fund balance has grown, and this year we actually segmented some of our funds. We took and decided to create an endowment section because we would like to grow a permanent endowment so that long-term we can look at the growth and say, let's look at it for funding that will be here for all times. And so by creation of the endowment, we at least got that set up. And kind of one other thing I'll talk about that we did that we're doing in relation to that endowment, we are in the process of finalizing and developing a legacy society for this, and with the hopes to use that as a vehicle to, again, increase the endowment portion of this. I recognize that when we ask people to part with their hard-earned money, we need to be responsible stewards of that money. We like to think that we do a pretty good job on our discretionary fund, but we know that some people would like to feel comfortable with the fact that if I give you some money or leave some money through my estate plan or whatever, that it really is solidified in that it will be generating benefits for this community for a long, long time. So with that, we carved out $25,000 and started the growth there. And our fund balance total went from last year, $136,000 at the beginning of the year, to where it's $169,000 at the end of the year. Now, I'll be honest and tell you, I'd like to take credit for the stock market, but Brendan and Steve and any of the other financial advisors, I'm sure, would jump in and say that's not true. But we certainly we certainly benefited by having a good market this past year. So those are a few of the things that are going on at the Community Foundation, the Centerville Washington Foundation. But I also want to tag on that, as everyone here knows, we are a component fund of the Dayton Foundation. And as such, we look at moving the needle in philanthropy, not only what comes into our discretionary fund, but also the creation of charitable checking accounts, because that's really kind of a measure of philanthropy. We're looking at the number of community funds that people in our geographic footprint will set up, because these all go for benefit of the community. Again, it's been a great year, and I know that growth is going to continue. Okay. Now, I'd like to, this is the good part, is to give away the money. And I'm going to invite Judy Buddy to come up, and she will handle the announcements there.
Okay, thanks, Jack. And for some people, $20,000 may not seem like a lot for a community foundation, but I've been on the board now 11 years, and I remember when we started 18 years ago, really giving out grants. We were doing $1,500 a year, $3,500 a year. So it's really pretty exciting to be able to start to give meaningful dollars instead of partially funding what people want, to really start having the dollars that we can really start making really a big impact in our community. So we're excited. We've been really trying to encourage nonprofit organizations and those in our community to apply for grants and make sure that they're aware that the program exists. So organizations that you're part of that serve people in our community, pass the word, and on your program it has the website where they can access the grant application. We have 2 cycles, one now, and the other is the deadline is September 1st. So in addition, as part of our $30,000 this year, we would like to be able to really partner with one organization to come up with a meaningful project that would be at least $10,000 that we could fund. So if you're someone out there who has that idea, or you know somebody who has a need, please have them reach out to one of the board members so we can meet with them and talk to them about what that project might be before we get to our September deadline, because we'd like to really see that project take off this year. So on your sheet, it highlights who our grants go to this spring. It's really exciting to say that we are now up to almost right around $100,000 that we've been able to support the community in the 20 years that the foundation has existed. That's almost about 40 different nonprofits in our that support individuals and that live and work in our community. So without further ado, and they're all on the list, and we have 9 this year, and which is kind of a record number. I think we had almost 20 applications. And I was talking to Kathy Ponitz, you know, one of the things we as a committee want to do, if we can find other organizations in our community that support the people that we couldn't fund, we want to be able to do that, because ideally we're all trying to support really making a difference. So thank you. So I'm going to call out the names of the individuals. Jack's going to give you the check, and then if you could all stand up here so we could get one picture of the group. When we're done, that would be fantastic. In addition to what you see listed on your program, we did provide the City of Centerville through the Stubbs Park program for the summer concert series and all the events that are going on with the Centerville celebration of their 50-year celebration, $1,500 sponsorship. So the first organization we're going to recognize, and we've been able to support them several years, is the Centerville Community Chorus. I think Jenny Suarez is here. Great, if you want to come on up. They do a lot of concerts in our community, and anything we can do to additionally support more concerts for them is something we like to do, and we're awarding them a $600 grant. So, thank you. Thanks. Anita Looper's here with the Centerville Band. Again, another great community asset we have, and we're excited to, they're going to do some extra concerts for this big 50-year celebration and the Family Fun Day, and so we are giving them a $600 grant to support them as well. So congratulations. Thank you. Oh, very good. Thank you. You want to go ahead and stay up here? Okay. The Feeding Friends at Harmony Creek Church were not able to attend today, but we're able to provide them an $850 grant to provide equipment to support their food pantry. New this year, a new group that has requested money is Young Life. They support individuals in our community to go to a camp, and there are some people who really can't afford that. And so we're excited to be able to give them $1,000 to help people, students attend. This is Eric Hoffman that's accepting the grant for Young Life. TJ's Place of Hope, certainly a much supported, loved, and great program in our community. We're providing $1,000 to Greg and Cheryl Crabtree are here to on behalf of TJ's Place of Hope. I think you guys were the individuals that started TJ's, and so we're very happy to continue to support you with this check, to do brochures and work on your website to make sure lots of people in our community know about TJ's Place of Hope. So. Hannah's Treasure Chest. Deanne Murphy is here from Hannah's Treasure Chest to accept the $1,000 grant check on their behalf. This is a program to fund beds for babies. Between the recall that's occurred for baby beds many years ago and I think bed bugs and all things that happen in the community, it makes it very difficult for them to actually get enough donations to support the need of beds for children. So we're excited to be able to give them $1,000. Lucy Sanchez is here on behalf of the Centerville Washington Park District to accept a $1,000 check. They do a program for the students in the schools that really teach them about nature and parks, and they want to update some of the materials for that program, so we're glad to support their educational efforts with the $1,000 check. Another new group we had this year is the Centerville Rotary. They provide dictionaries and thesauri to all the either third grade or fifth grade students in not only the Centerville school system, but Incarnation and the school systems in our area. Somebody asked, well, do the students even use those today with technology? And we ask the teachers this every year because we want to make sure that it's a meaningful thing. And they find that it is. And for the Rotarians that go and present those dictionaries, to see the excitement on the kids' faces, and they send thank you notes telling us the longest word and all these ways that they've learned to use it. So we're presenting the Centerville Rotary a $1,500 check, and Chuck King is here to accept that. And then a $2,500 check to the Centerville Washington History to get them some new office equipment. I know you guys are doing a lot of activities this year, and we want to make sure you have a nice professional image when everybody comes to visit you. And so Vicki Bondi and Steve Feverston are here to accept the $2,500 check for Centerville Washington History.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, well, let us get one quick picture here.
Can we make 2 rows? Yeah, 2 rows. There we go. There you go. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's good.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Judy, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, a couple of other items before we get to the main part of our program with our speaker. I would like to acknowledge and talk about the pipeline to the board and the fact that the success, I believe, of where we've headed is active board members. And we spend a lot of time looking and networking in the community to look for board members, because this is a working board. There is stuff that's required to be done, as Carol will talk about on the, or can tell you about on the events committee. We have a donor development committee. We have a marketing committee. What other committees do we have? Grants committee. So we have, they actually have meetings. I recently had a meeting with the marketing manager for Panera, and I said, hey, you need to support us financially because we have so many meetings at your place. And I can tell you, I bet there's probably a meeting a week there of one committee or just people talking about the business of the foundation. But this year, we have 4 folks that are joining our board, and we are so excited because they're just awesome people and already jumping in. Their term doesn't actually start until May the 1st. However, they've participated in the board meetings, our planning sessions since January, our February board meetings. I almost missed, as I was making a list here, I forgot Debbie Dawkins is new because, quite honestly, she's done so much work on this event as a new committee member. So what I would like to do is acknowledge the new board members. Debbie Dawkins, if you'd like. Okay. Paul Labby, Paul, back there. Karen Stout, and Brendan Cunningham. So without the new active board members, because, you know, next year we have a couple of people going off, and I mean, you can only get people to do this for so long, and 25 years is long enough. Is that right, Paul? 25 years? Which kind of segues into the next section. I would like to recognize our retiring board members. The first one is Bob Yeck, who cannot be here. He rolled off the board, and after, I think he was probably on the board for 11 or 12 years, and just has done so much for this community. And I think anybody in the Centerville, Washington Township area know how much the Yeck family and Bob Yeck has done. So we certainly appreciate his service. Next, I would like to bring up Mr. Paul Hines. And come on, you got to come up, Paul. You can't just stand at the table. It's a bigger deal than this. Now, I owe him or he owes me, I'm not quite sure, because he's the one who recruited me.
Yes.
And he has regrets about that all the time. So, Paul, in grateful recognition of your service, you know, from 2009 to 2018, I want to thank you on behalf of the entire community and certainly the board for your contribution to the Centerville, Washington Foundation. So, this is the first thing. The second thing I will tell you is the board has unanimously voted to make you a trustee emeritus. To recognize not only your contribution to the foundation board, the fact that you are an honoree for the Founders Award, I mean, that tells you something. And you have just been such a supporter of everything in this community, and we thank you very much. Even though you went to St. X. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hey, that's pretty good, isn't it? On time, huh? So we are at 6:35, and that's the time that I said that I would get Kathy up here. So with that, I would like to bring up our speaker, Kathy Ponitz. You may remember her dad. Okay. He actually was a fill-in last year because we thought we had hoped that we had asked Kathy, and then a scheduling conflict, and Dr. Dave Ponitz certainly filled in admirably, and we appreciate it. So, Kathy,
next second best.
there you go. And so with that, I bring up Kathy Ponitz, who is the Executive Director of CareSource Foundation. Is that the right title?
I'm actually
Chief
a
Cook and
Vice President,
Chief Cook and
take
Bottle Washer
anything.
of the CareSource Foundation.
Friend of Jack. How's
There
that?
you go.
Friend of Jack.
And Dayton Rotary. There we go.
Great, thank
Okay,
you, sir.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Well, first of all, thank you. This is a lot of fun, and it's always fun when I feel like I'm in the room with my people. Those are foundation people. It doesn't happen very often in my world, so thank you. And as Jack shared, my dad was standing in this spot last year, so no pressure. Looking right at me right here, no pressure. Thankfully, I had a real good teacher, and actually on the way here tonight, we drove here together, and he was giving me some advice, and he said, whatever you do, don't be overly witty or charming or intellectual, just be yourself. So that's what you get. So this will be really fun for me. when I first talked with Jack and Carol, they asked if I could mix it up a little bit and do several things, which I said I would be more than happy to do. One was CareSource has been in the news a lot. And there are still a lot of people that know that CareSource is down there, but not sure exactly what we do. So I'm going to give a brief history and time of CareSource, a little bit about what we're doing now. Since I am with my people, my foundation people, I will share a little bit about the foundation, which I actually ended up at CareSource in 2006 because they asked me to come in and create the CareSource Foundation, which I will tell you in the corporate foundation world is a real thrill because you don't often get to do that. I'd been in the corporate foundation world with Reynolds and Reynolds for quite a while. That one was about 100 years old, so I came in and tinkered quite a bit, but I thought creation would be quite fun. And then to talk about the current state of philanthropy, both in Ohio and locally. And lastly, this was a really fun part. He said, what are the predictions for philanthropy and charitable giving in the future? So that part is great because I could just make up a whole lot of things and they're predictions. And now I will tell you, I have about 10 things that I think are maybe on the horizon, but I didn't make them up. I think they come from a lot of good foundation trends and history. So with that, I will share a little bit about CareSource. For those of you who don't know, CareSource was launched 30 years ago, actually as the Dayton Area Health Plan, as a group of community leaders sat down at a table and said, how do we do a better job of delivering health services to our most vulnerable children and families? They recruited Pam Morris, our CEO, who came to Dayton as employee number 1. And she will be officially retiring in about 2 weeks, which is very bittersweet for us, but we certainly wish her well and hope that we will have an occasional invitation to Naples to talk about old times. So she's a real social entrepreneur who worked a great deal of magic to get this new, innovative idea off the ground. And quite frankly, it's one of the things that I think makes CareSource very special is because of that spark, we have never lost that drive to have a healthy appetite for change, for trying something new, for being pioneers in healthcare, which sometimes gets really stuck, especially when you're talking about working with people who have all kinds of needs that may be very different than ours. So we are now the second largest managed care plan in the United States. Managed care designed to manage cost for the states, as well as making sure that you are delivering very high quality health care. So we are a health plan. So similar to whoever you have your insurance through, whether it's Aetna or AARP or Anthem or United. So we do a lot of similar things. We do pre-authorizations, we pay claims, we have an 800 number, we replace lost cards, but really we do a lot more than that because our goal is to really be a life services company who happens to be delivering insurance, managed care, in a very new way. The key differences are also that our consumers are in typically one of 3 categories: Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, and Marketplace, the Affordable Care Plan. And the other is that we are, unlike most of our competitors, we're a nonprofit. So there's only a handful of us across the country who are nonprofits, but what that allows us to do is take revenue, reinvest it, and be able to give our consumers, we call them our members, our consumers, to give them higher quality transportation to a doctor's appointment. A lot of low-income people, that's what keeps them away, is they don't have transportation, or to actually give them something other than a bare bones hearing aid. Actually a hearing aid that works, right? Especially when we're talking about children. So anyhow, we get excited about that part. So I think it's also helpful maybe to dispel a few myths or reinforce what you already know about our core consumers, who are Medicaid consumers. So over 90% of Medicaid consumers have at least one job. Yes, that's true. Have at least one job. Many of them do not have employer-sponsored health care, and we know in this country, insurance is based on employer-sponsored health care, and that can be really tricky. Most are accessing Medicaid temporarily, typically as the result of a traumatic health issue, the loss of a job, a bad divorce. It could be all kinds of things that have led them to some kind of economic challenge. So it truly is a safety net for those who are experiencing the toughest of times. 67% of Medicaid consumers are white, 31% African American, Latino, Asian. Many of our consumers, actually most Medicaid consumers, the average amount of time they may be on Medicaid is 3 years. So the whole concept of government program consumers being lifers is truly a myth, because it is not a lifestyle. We think it is truly a lifeline. So managed care really does work. And I'm going to have, if it's okay with you, a little audience participation throughout this conversation. And so here's my first pop quiz for this group. So over the last 3 years, managed care in Ohio, formerly a fee-for-service model, saved Ohio's Medicaid program, i.e. us taxpayers, how much? In 3 years, how much do you think? Just yell it out like you're at the bar.
50 million.
50 million. Good guess. Anybody else? So the actual number is $3.5 billion. So as taxpayers, I mean, I'll take that. And you can't talk about CareSource without talking about our growth. One of the things that's fun for me, as I've been there now 12 years, is to think back about what it looked like when I got there. So in 2006, we were working in 15 counties in Ohio. We are now working in over 500 counties in 5 states, including all 88 counties in Ohio. We had 450 employees. We now have 4,000. We had 350,000 members. We now have 2 million. We had not hit the $1 billion mark, and we are now on track this year to be a $10 billion nonprofit. So you'll see on the slide the footprint in the states that we're working: Ohio, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So I came to CareSource, as I shared, to launch the foundation. At CareSource, we call our corporate mission our heartbeat, and I like to think of the CareSource Foundation as our soul. And it has been a thrilling ride. You'll see some stats. One of the things I really like to talk about is not the dollars that we've given away, but what has really happened as a result of investing those dollars in the safety net of nonprofits that so many of the demographic of our consumers desperately need to access in order to thrive and live a full life. We are focused right now, we are a health foundation, but we're focused on social determinants of health. We think of that really as the holistic definition of health. What are those things, positive or negative, that are going to impact your lifestyle, your life? So certainly economic stability is at the top of the list. Hunger, healthy babies. We work with so many children. Sustainable housing. A couple examples that I really have gotten excited about over the course of the last couple years. One of the most recent that we're just starting to see some data come out of is a partnership with Dayton Public Schools. We invested in an asthma mobile. One of the things that many don't realize is how many low-income children have asthma at a much higher rate than many other kids. A lot of that is because they may not understand their asthma. They may not have the tools, the inhalers, really understanding what the symptoms are, nor perhaps does their family. So we have these mobile asthma units that now go around to all of the elementary schools in Dayton Public Schools. We have a nurse on board, we have an educator. It's a fun place for kids to come on board so they don't feel like they're being singled out because of their asthma. They feel like it's really a gift that they get to go hop on the bus, and we have been working that for about 18 months, and here's another pop quiz for you. So over the last 18 months, we have helped decrease the hospital admittance rates for these kids, and we're working with 300 kids right now. So we've reduced hospital admittance rates by what percent do you think? 30%, 40%, 50%. 50% in 18 months. So for us, that's been a real happy investment. Here's another question for you. Gem City Market. How many of you have heard of Gem City Market? So this is something that hopefully you'll hear more about soon. I am super excited about this because here's the quiz. Here's the question. We currently have how many full-service grocery stores in West Dayton? Zero. You've been watching the news. Good for you. That's the answer. Zero. So what's happening is that we have families, individuals who are using the 7-Eleven, the gas station. They're using that to go grab food. So what are they we know what's there. There's chips, there's ding dongs, there's beef jerky, but you know what? Have you ever seen lettuce? Have you ever seen an apple? Well, they do have apples at my 7-Eleven, but a cantaloupe, they're not there. A nice piece of chicken, it's not there. So Gem City will be one of the first community co-op grocery stores in the entire country, just up North Salem, and we're really excited about that. The last example I'll share is one that continues to, I think, bring a lot of people great joy. This one was an investment in Franklin County, which is Columbus. So South Side neighborhood, one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city of Columbus, very near Nationwide Children's Hospital, for those of you who may know that area. One of the things that we found was that many of the pregnant moms in that area were experiencing significant hardship. As a matter of fact, many of them were in situations that forced them to live in homeless shelters, to couch hop with friends. And as we know from all of the studies, if this happens when a woman is pregnant, it immediately puts her into a high-risk category. And what we also know is that you're in a high-risk category when you're pregnant. There's a good chance that your baby is going to be born in a high-risk circumstance. And so we thought we would try something. And we worked with a great organization that works in that neighborhood and created what we call Care Home. And there was room for 10 moms who we helped to get out of shelter into safe, sustainable housing. We wrapped them in all kinds of support, trying to figure out what are those things that have put them in this situation. Is it because they couldn't finish their education? Is it they didn't have a job? Is it whatever? There are a lot of different things. Every person is very individual. We figured those out, wrapped them in support, made sure that they had all of the health care they needed for their baby. Several of them, this was not their first child, did not have great health outcomes with a first baby. So I am very happy to announce that since last October, we have now given birth to 10 full-weight, full-term healthy babies. And And I think the best news is yet to come, because the City of Columbus and their Infant Mortality Task Force took note of this and said, we would love to work with you to replicate what you did, but there are so many more young women who need that. I mean, one of them who I met recently was an outstanding full-ride Ohio State basketball player. She was the star of the team, found out she was pregnant 2 weeks after graduation, and her family disowned her, having her college degree and having been a star. And she had nowhere to go. So she is now part of this wave where, thanks to the City of Columbus wanting to do some replication, we are now in the process of putting these wonderful housing heavens in place for 100 moms. So that for us has been very exciting and certainly part of social innovation. So let's talk about the business of philanthropy, because it truly is booming. In fact, it is outpacing many industries in both growth and especially disruptive change and opportunity. You see on the screen there are 1.5 million tax-exempt organizations in the U.S., 99,000 of them in Ohio. I will tell you, sometimes it feels like all million are in Ohio, but it's 99,000, and over 9% of the U.S. population works for a nonprofit. Many of our grant award winners tonight are some of the best, and we're thankful that you are doing the heavy lifting. I always say it is a joy to have this job, and it is wonderful to be able to give a check, but we always have to remember that you are the ones who are doing the heavy lifting, and we could not do that without your compassion and certainly your energy. So nonprofits have become an essential part of our social fabric. So let's look at a few trends that have gotten us to this place. You can see here in the most recent U.S. philanthropy reports that Americans made charitable contributions totaling over $390 billion. That's over 2% of our GDP. And you can see from our charts here exactly where that is coming from. And I think that's really exciting, especially that we've increased in giving dollars every single year since 1976, with the exception of 2008 and 2009. And we all know what was going on in those years. So who are we giving to? And this may be a little bit of an eye chart for those of you sitting in the back. So let me take you through the top 5. Number 1, far and away, is religion and faith organizations at 32%. The remaining 4 that are between 9 and 15% of the total are education, human services, gifts to foundations, and health-related organizations. Public society benefits, I think this is really interesting. In the last couple of years, public society benefits, which are things like voter education, civil rights, civil liberties, consumer rights, and economic development, has been one of the fastest growing subsectors in the last several years. So here's some more audience participation. Here's a fun fact. Higher education received multiple $100 million gifts in the last year, many in the form of appreciated assets. So in other words, not cash money, but in things. So what are the top 2 things that were donated to colleges and universities this past year? Okay, other than stock, we'll consider that cash. All right, real estate? Art? Artwork is number 1. And the second one, I'll tell you what, it's a toughie. It surprised even me. Number 2 is rare books. So, and we know Jack doesn't read books, so he has no books to give. Books on tape. So real quickly, some local context. We talked about the Dayton Foundation. Certainly, from an asset standpoint, they are right at the top and the granddaddy of integrity when it comes to great foundations, $352 million. Followed by the Mateel, Troy, Springfield, Morgan Family Foundation. Anybody know about the Morgan Family Foundation? Do you know what their claim to fame is?
The flood, says Morgan from Yellow Springs.
It's Morgan from Yellow Springs, right? They have the Antioch Company. And so the Antioch Company had two big times of booming revenue. One was 1926, and the other one was in the 1990s. So in 1926, it was bookmarks. Bookmarks and book plates. Booming business. And then in the 1990s, they started a national craze. Any guess what that was? Creative memories. Scrapbooking. Scrapbooking. So there are three key levers for what we're seeing, I think, as extraordinary change in the philanthropy sector. Certainly impact and innovation. Technology is having unprecedented impact on everything that we're doing, and that goes hand in hand with the new generations who are now either discovering or carrying on a family legacy. One of the things I loved that just came out when they were talking about millennials. So millennials are age 22 to 37. So 95% of millennials say they contributed to something in the last year. You know, sometimes we think that they're slackers, they don't care, they're off twittering on their phones or playing video games, and sometimes they are. But what we know is that technology makes it easy. How many of you are on Facebook? And how many times are you seeing something kind of, hey, I'm celebrating my birthday by asking for donations to the Humane Society? It's easy. And the last one, and depending on the audience, this audience is really very split, so I'm really not sure how I will capture this, but if it's a room full of women, I frame it as RESPCT. And if it's a room full of men, I frame it as don't get nervous, but. So take whichever you like. Women are expected to inherit 70. Women are expected to inherit 70% of the $41 trillion in intergenerational wealth transfer in the next 10 years. So here's one. Here's a good audience participation. By 2025, what percentage of U.S. billionaires will be women? By 2025, 15%? 61%. 61%. And speaking of technology, so here's just a really quick reminder of the impact of social media. How many of you remember the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge of not too long? I think it was 2 years ago. So they raised $115 million in how long?
1 year.
1 year? 84 days. Less than 3 months. So the average mid-sized nonprofit, Goodwill, Salvation Army, United Way, typically that would take them 9 years. They did it in 84 days. So with that, I say, why is it magic? It's because it's new. They put the fun back in fundraising. They use social media, which can go around the world in seconds. So I'm really eager to see what the next one is. I understand that there's something about like a hot pepper challenge or something, which I hope comes and goes very quickly. Not really a fan of that one. So I'll close with 10 quick predictions for the near future of philanthropy. So we're hearing a lot about the tax changes. And I think we probably all have some questions about what that means for our cherished and valuable nonprofits. And it's been estimated that the new tax laws will reduce charitable giving by as much as $20 billion a year. I'm going to say, at least for 2018, my hunch is that things will hold steady. because we've had record stock market gains, and I'm hoping that those will balance the two out. New mega givers emerging. We now have over 170 billionaires who have signed the Giving Pledge, which is a commitment by the world's wealthiest to dedicate a majority of their wealth through their wills to charity. Which I did hear a funny joke that said Warren Buffett, who was the first one to sign the pledge, when he said, "I'm giving a majority of my wealth to charity," his oldest daughter, Susie, went and changed her name to Charity. So we'll see what happens there. So Jeff Bezos, Bill and Melinda Gates, Jeff Bezos, now the richest person, issued an open call last year for ideas on how he should spend his money. And of course he did that on social media. We haven't heard yet, but I predict that in the next couple months, I think we'll hear about some of his plans. He's a little bit of a wild card, so it will either be thrilling or a major disappointment. I have no predictions on that one. He's a tough one to read. Bill and Melinda Gates, on the other hand, have been fairly predictable for years. They've been doing a lot around global health, but with a $90 billion private fortune remaining, I would expect that they will select something else that will be new, big, and may rock the planet, may rock the states, may rock a classroom. That's my prediction, is it will be something around education. Refugees. So the MacArthur Foundation gave a $100 million grant to support issues of refugees, and most grant makers have really tuned out on that, and I think it should boost the visibility of that cause. Howard Schultz, he's the founder of Starbucks, exactly. So there's been a lot of talk there and about whether or not he is going to run for president in 2020, or at least throw his hat in the ring. There's a lot of chatter in my government affairs universe about him. So I think his philanthropy will be his tell. So if he makes a big contribution that will impress moderates and progressives alike, he's running. Scandal. The charitable sector has been free of scandal for a very long time. And even though I don't like saying this, I think there are a few things brewing. I think we're overdue for a major scandal. Campus gifts keep getting bigger. Last year, we saw some of the largest gifts, $500, $600 million. So my prediction is the first $1 billion contribution is on the horizon. And Me Too will probably rear its head in this sector. Some say that sexual harassment is common in the fundraising world, which is a sad statement to make. But I think we've been surprised by a lot of things in that area over the last 6, 9, 12 months. And the odds seem good that something will happen, but hopefully it will be on the good side. And that is, there will be some contributions, especially around domestic violence, diversity, and gender bias. New money flows for climate change. Again, that's one that many are saying is the existential threat of our time. Philanthropists have not necessarily gotten in that space except for a couple big legacy givers. So I think we'll see some more movement there. And so my wild card prediction, the last one, I'll use a story to illustrate. And the first question I have to ask, though, is how many lawyers are in the room? All right, sir, I am going to apologize to you now. Or not for you. We appreciate all you do. I'm going to apologize to you now for the story. So it starts out that says a very rich lawyer is approached by the local United Way CEO. And the CEO is confused that this man who makes over $1 million a year has not contributed 1 red cent to charity over the last year. So has the conversation with him, and the lawyer says, well, first of all, my mother is really sick in the hospital, and her health care doesn't cover the costs. I have 5 children, the result of 3 failed marriages. I have my sister's husband who suddenly died, and she has no one to support her 4 children. And the United Way CEO said, gosh, I am so sorry. I would have never asked had I know I feel so badly about asking for the money. And the lawyer responds and says, yeah, well, if I'm not giving them any money, why would I give any to you? Sorry, sorry. So my wild card prediction is that joke would not apply to one single person in this room, because you are an incredibly generous and driven and energetic group, and I couldn't be more honored to be with you tonight, and continued success with all of your big goals and certainly in your new leadership transition, and I'm very excited to see what you do next. Thanks.
Dave, what were you thinking, Dave, when you said she wasn't witty, or don't be witty, don't be intelligent? I'll tell you what, there was wit and intelligence throughout this presentation. Thank you very much, Kathy. I was extremely informative and just right on point for this group tonight. Thank you. Okay, just 2 more things to do. First, I want to announce, save the date, September the 27th. Is anybody having a birthday on September the 27th? Joyce Young. We are going to have a birthday party, aka also known as our annual Founders event, September the 27th, and our honoree is going to be Joyce Young. And it is her actual birthday. So I think we've got the theme all nailed down. I mean, Carol was so excited, Joyce, when she heard that. She said, this is going to be easy. So save the date, September 27th. So now, after 3 years, I am very, very honored to turn the steerage of this organization to a guy that I've known for a number of years, and I just feel tremendously excited. We'll be leading this organization for the next 10 years. Is that right, Mike? For the next 2 years. So I'd like to introduce the next president of the Centerville Washington Foundation, Mike Beavis. And with that, that's about all I have to say. What's that, Deb? You said that's surprising. That's really not all I have to say. That is all I have to say, except thank you once again, and see you in September.